Hey everybody, Maddox here and welcome back to the Pokehistorian, the show where sometimes I just talk about whatever I feel like is going on in the market right now. And with this fireside chat, I wanted to talk briefly about some of the market movement I've been seeing, particularly on the Scarlet and Violet Pokemon cards. I touched on this briefly in a video maybe about a week or so ago, and I showed an example of the Swablu card and how there was like an attempted buyout, and you saw a whole bunch of cards bought like at a very low end price, and then it did absolutely nothing and the card continued to go down. And after taking a look this morning and just kind of playing around when I woke up, I noticed that that appears to be happening across the board with many of these regular illustration rare cards. Another one that comes to mind is the Bulbasaur card from 151. I saw a massive attempt at a buyout on that card, and the same thing happened here. And there are a number of other cards too. So it was just kind of an interesting thing for me to see, because it kind of proves the point that just because somebody tries to buy out a card, like that alone isn't going to be enough for it to just skyrocket up. Like in order for the actual buyout to work, there has to be like an actual market demand where people are willing to see that buyout and actually induce FOMO, or fear of missing out. And I think right now with the way the market is, it's very hard to induce FOMO because we've seen a lot of pullback on many of these special illustration rares and illustration rare cards. And of course, with things going on with the economy, I think people are thinking that, well, these things are probably not going to go up too much more. And you also have to consider too, is like we've had so much like market movement where these cards have moved up so much. You eventually get to a point where people like psychologically start to think like, okay, like, you know, we've got to be getting near the top now. It's kind of like if you're at like the gas station, you're pumping your car, right? And you've been pumping along for a while, and after a while you're like, okay, I got to be getting near the top now. It's like you get that same kind of feeling, I think, with markets. So we have a lot of that going on here. And so even when these people are trying to like pump these cards, it's not enough to make it work because the actual demand for the cards just isn't right there right now. Even some of the more popular cards, like I just mentioned, like Bulbasaur, a very popular Gen 1 Pokemon, even though people did a buyout for it, most likely. I mean, you can never prove it for sure, but I mean, if you see those massive spikes, there's more likely than not that's what happened. But you see that, and like people, either they're not paying attention to it, or they see it and they're not concerned, and they just kind of go about their business. And that's about all there is to it. So just like I said, it's just kind of a cool thing for me to think about here. You know, there's really two elements to a buyout let's say there's two elements to a successful buyout. One, you have to actually get a whole bunch of cards. And number two, it has to be something that people actually care about and people in the moment actually want. And of course, the factors that I consider into that are, you know, the popularity of the Pokemon, the popularity of the set, and the market conditions. And of course, right now, the main thing that's holding these back, I think, is market conditions. And the fact that, you know, we've been in such a strong bull market and some of these cards just ripped and just went so high. So if you're into, you know, try to buy out cards or what, Godspeed, you know, do what you want. But I think you might have a pretty hard time right now. And for me personally, I'm happy to see these cards coming back down. It was interesting to watch all this craze and to see these things going up over and over, week after week. You know, I was watching the Drowsy and all those other cards, all the Kamiya pump and dump, you know, that was very fascinating to see all that. But I'm happy that we're kind of coming back down to earth. Some of these cards now are actually at an all-time low, like the Tarapago special illustration, where I did like a little short about that. And like that is fascinating to me because that card never got really pumped, but boy did it's come down hard, and it's a gorgeous card if you haven't seen it in person. So anyways, that's all I got for you. Just wanted to kind of touch on this subject because I found it very interesting just to see kind of how this happened. This is the first time I think where TCG Player had the graphs where it shows like how high the cards can go up and like how many copies are being bought, in addition to like seeing like the market prices too, where we could really like analyze what happens like when the market reaches its peak and then like starts crashing, but then people try and save it, but it doesn't work. Because like during the COVID boom, we didn't have like, the graphs weren't as sophisticated on TCG Player back then. They were a lot more basic. I think this whole thing was showing the number of copies like bought over a week is pretty new too. Don't quote me on that, but like I don't remember seeing that like a couple years ago. So yeah, been definitely a fascinating social experiment to watch for sure. So Anyways, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll see you in the next video.